A convoy moves through a city at night. Black SUVs, no markings, maximum security. The kind of motorcade that tells you whoever's inside doesn't want anyone to know where they're going. Somewhere thousands of miles away, a room full of analysts watches a screen, a blinking dot on a map. They've been tracking this convoy for weeks. They know the route, they know the timing, they have the capability, and now they have the order. This scenario is no longer fiction. It is the new reality of modern warfare. And the question we're going to answer today is one that would have seemed unthinkable just a few years ago. Could Benjamin Netanyahu, the Prime Minister of Israel, become a direct military target? Stay with me, because the answer involves a shift in the rules of war so significant, so dangerous, that once you understand it, you cannot unsee it. Wars have a rhythm. They escalate in stages, and if you know what to look for, you can see each stage coming. Stage 1, infrastructure, power grids, bridges, supply lines, the skeleton of a nation. Stage 2, military assets, weapons depots, air defense systems, missile batteries, the muscles. Stage 3, and this is where it gets dangerous, leadership. This is the stage we are now entering. Israel's recent strikes on Iranian command infrastructure weren't just military operations. They were a signal, a message written in fire and precision munitions, sent directly to the men sitting at the top of Iran's power structure. Command centers, communication nodes, sites directly linked to senior leadership, not just generals, but the political and military architects of Iranian strategy. Here is why that matters. When you target leadership infrastructure, you're not just attacking buildings. You are saying the people inside those buildings are now legitimate targets of this war. That is a threshold, and it has been crossed, which means the door swings both ways. Let me introduce you to a concept that military strategists call decapitation strategy. The idea is simple, brutal, and at least in theory, effective. Instead of fighting an entire army, you cut off the head. You target the commanders, the decision makers, the leaders who hold the whole operation together. Destroy the brain, and the body collapses. For most of military history, this was nearly impossible to execute reliably. Leaders hid. Intelligence was imperfect. You couldn't guarantee a kill, but something changed. Precision-guided missiles, autonomous drones, real-time satellite surveillance, signals intelligence that can pinpoint a phone call to within meters, facial recognition, AI-assisted targeting systems. The technology gap between wanting to target a leader and actually doing it has collapsed entirely. What once required a special forces raid behind enemy lines, dangerous, deniable, high risk, can now be accomplished with a drone strike ordered from a bunker on the other side of the world. And here's the problem nobody wants to talk about out loud. When one side normalizes leadership strikes, the other side starts doing the math. This isn't new. History has been warning us about this for decades. We just weren't paying attention. Cast your mind back to 1943. World War II is raging in the Pacific. American intelligence intercepts a message. Japan's top admiral, Isoroku Yamamoto, the architect of Pearl Harbor, is scheduled to fly to a forward airbase. His route, his timing, all of it cracked open. The order came down, kill him. 18 P-38 fighters launched from Guadalcanal. They flew 400 miles at wave-top level to avoid radar detection. And they found him exactly where the intelligence said he would be. Yamamoto's plane went down over the jungle, dead. Operation Vengeance. The United States had just assassinated one of Japan's most senior military commanders, and they called it a legitimate military operation. Fast forward to January 2020. A U.S. drone strike near Baghdad airport kills General Qassem Soleimani, the head of Iran's Quds Force, arguably the most powerful military figure in the entire Middle East outside of a formal head of state. This wasn't a battlefield kill. This was a targeted assassination of a senior state military figure, carried out openly by a government on foreign soil. The taboo didn't just crack, it shattered. Now look at where we are today. Israel has been conducting leadership strikes on Iranian-backed organizations for years. Hamas commanders, Hezbollah generals. The strikes grow more sophisticated, more senior, more brazen with every cycle. The precedent has been built brick by brick over decades. And precedents have consequences. So let's talk about the man at the center of all of this. Benjamin Netanyahu is not just a political leader. In this conflict, he is the conflict, at least symbolically. He is Israel's longest-serving prime minister. He is the public face of Israeli strategy in Gaza, in Lebanon, and now in the escalating confrontation with Iran directly. When Iran, Hezbollah, or Hamas want to put a human face on Israeli policy, his is the face they use. And in warfare, symbolic targets carry enormous strategic weight. Striking a military base sends one message. Striking the leader sends a completely different one. It says, your decisions have personal consequences. It says, we can reach you. It says, this war is now personal. From a strategic standpoint, Netanyahu represents something adversaries cannot ignore. He is the decision maker, the authorizer, the man who reportedly approves or denies high-value strike packages. If you want to send an unmistakable message about the price of escalation, he is the most unmistakable target imaginable. Now, and I want to be crystal clear, this is a strategic and geopolitical analysis. What I'm describing is the cold, ruthless logic that states and non-state actors apply when they decide how to respond. Not a moral endorsement, not a prediction. A framework for understanding what becomes thinkable once certain lines are crossed. And in this conflict, a lot of lines have already been crossed. So how would a state actor or a network of allied groups theoretically go about this? There are several pathways, and none of them require a conventional army. Pathway 1. Proxy forces. Iran doesn't need to pull the trigger itself. It has spent decades building a network of armed groups across the region in Lebanon, Iraq, Syria, Yemen, Gaza. These groups operate with varying degrees of independence. Some take orders directly. Others operate on shared strategic interests. A leadership strike doesn't have to be traced back to Tehran to achieve its objective. Pathway 2. Cyber operations. Leadership targeting doesn't always mean physical assassination. Destroying a leader's communications, exposing their location, disabling their security infrastructure, these are all forms of targeting. And in the cyber domain, attribution is deliberately murky. Pathway 3. Drone or missile strikes. This is the domain that has most transformed modern conflict. Cheap, precise, deniable enough. A swarm of drones can overwhelm sophisticated air defense systems. We have seen this demonstrated repeatedly, from Houthi attacks on Saudi oil facilities to Ukrainian drone strikes deep inside Russian territory. The strategic objective in any of these scenarios is the same. Restore deterrence. Signal that escalation has a price. Make the other side recalculate. Here's the part of this analysis that should keep you up at night. Once leadership strikes become normalized, truly normalized, not just occasional and deniable, but openly acknowledged as part of the conflict's logic, something fundamental shifts. The cycle becomes self-reinforcing. One side strikes a leadership target. The other side retaliates in kind. The first side escalates further. Each step makes the next step easier to justify. Each strike lowers the threshold for the next one. Political leaders, who were once kept largely off the battlefield by informal norms and mutual self-interest, become combatants. Their security details grow. Their movements become classified. Their families become considerations in threat assessments. And wars that were once bounded, fought between militaries, on defined fronts with some hope of negotiated resolution, become something else entirely, something more personal, more volatile, more difficult to stop. Because you can negotiate territory, you can negotiate ceasefires, you can negotiate prisoner exchanges. But when the war becomes about survival of leadership itself, when the leaders themselves are the targets, the incentive to negotiate evaporates. Every concession looks like weakness. Every peace overture looks like a trap. The war doesn't end, it metastasizes. We may be standing at one of those rare moments in history where the rules visibly change in real time, not because anyone planned it, not because any single actor decided to tear up the rulebook, but because a series of decisions, each one seeming calculated and proportionate in its own moment, has accumulated into something qualitatively new. The normalization of leadership strikes as a tool of state conflict. We have watched it happen incrementally. Soleimani in 2020, senior Hamas commanders in 2021, 2023, 2024, Hezbollah's leadership decimated in a wave of extraordinary intelligence operations. Iranian command infrastructure targeted in coordinated strikes. Each one was justified, each one was defensible in isolation. But together, they have built a world in which the question is no longer, which military assets will be targeted? The question is now, which leaders are next? Here is what I want you to take away from this. Leadership strikes change the fundamental nature of conflict. They transform wars from contests between militaries, abstract, institutional, impersonal, into something visceral, something personal. Struggles between individual human beings who sit at the apex of power and now understand, viscerally, that power comes with a target on your back. In that environment, symbolic targets matter enormously. Retaliation becomes not just strategic, but emotional. Escalation doesn't follow a neat ladder, it follows the logic of revenge. And Netanyahu, whether he intended to or not, now sits at the center of exactly that dynamic. He authorized strikes that changed the rules. He leads a state that has normalized leadership targeting more aggressively than almost any other actor in the modern era. And he operates in a region where Iran and its allies have both the motivation and, increasingly, the means to respond in kind. The danger of leadership strikes is not just the leaders they threaten, it is the cycle they unleash, a cycle with no obvious off-ramp, no clear ending, and consequences that extend far beyond any single target. This is the world we are living in now, and understanding it is the first step to making sense of everything that comes next. If this kind of deep dive geopolitical analysis is what you're here for, subscribe, because there is a lot more of this coming. Drop your thoughts in the comments. I want to know what you think escalates next. Until then, stay sharp.